Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 143 of the Mo Money Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Morehouse. Thanks so much for joining me again for another episode of the Mo Money Podcast. I'm super excited about this episode. I'm talking to someone who is in a completely different industry than me, the beauty industry. I've always been very fascinated by anyone who is kind of a full-time beauty blogger or a vlogger, probably because I have no idea how to do my own makeup. I'm 31 years old and still don't really know how to do my mascara. I just don't. I don't know how to do it without smudging. It just doesn't work for me. So I am going to be talking to Jessica Desjardins. She is the founder of Beautezine, a online magazine all about beauty. And you can bet your, bottom dollar, as they never say, because that's a very old saying, you can bet she knows how to do anything and everything when it comes to makeup and beauty, and just has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to everything in the beauty industry. But what I'm talking about in this episode with her is just how she was able to take this passion for beauty and turn that into a full-time online business. She's been doing this for over 6 years. She has a huge following. She makes her money by, just having this website. I'm in awe. I know you might think, but that's what you do. Yes, but I would not even know where to start. In the beauty industry, because I know for a fact, it is so crazy competitive. Everyone has a video channel. I've met so many amazingly talented makeup artists, and they all have YouTube channels or blogs. So I know it's a very competitive space. So you need to be very, very good at what you do to make a voice for yourself. So we're going to be talking about how she was able to quit her job to do her own beauty business full time, how she manages her money with a variable income because she is obviously self-employed, how she also makes the concerted effort to also invest her money so it can grow, because she mentions in the podcast, she's like, I'm not getting a pension. I need to save for my future. And so we talk about all of that good stuff in this interview. But before I get to the interview, here are just a few words about this episode's sponsor. Support for this episode comes from Tangerine Investments. Did you know that according to a recent study by Tangerine, over a quarter of Canadians, 28% to be specific, are committing to better money management practices for 2018? Did you also know that 63% of Canadians feel that investing is scary? If you're nodding your head right now because you're in one, if not both of those groups, then let's turn those New Year's resolutions into actionable goals this year. And let's start by getting you over that fear of investing so you can start working toward reaching your financial goals. Not sure where to start? Why not start by checking out Tangerine? Tangerine offers investment funds that are low cost, and they follow a simple approach that doesn't require you to be an expert. Tangerine offers 5 diversified portfolios that are recommended based on your needs, risk tolerance, and investment goals. The best part? You can get started online in minutes, and their investment experts are just a phone call away if needed. You can learn more at tangerine.ca/investments. Once again, that's tangerine.ca/investments. Thank you, Jessica, for joining me on the Mo Money Podcast. I'm so excited to talk to, I've never talked to anyone who does kind of beauty professionally. And that's actually something that I'm so interested in because I'm so bad at it. Oh, gosh. So thank you so much for joining me. Before we kind of hop into, I have all these questions I'm so curious about your brand, how you started the business. But I would like to get to know you a little bit more. What is your background? Have you always been interested in beauty? Is that kind of this is exactly the direction you thought your life would be in?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. And so a little bit of background on me. I've always enjoyed beauty. When I was younger, I, would play in my mom's makeup bag and all that kind of stuff. And, throughout high school, I liked experimenting with makeup, but it wasn't my vision at all. As much as I loved it, my background is in science. So my degree is in health science from the University of Ottawa. And my original plan was actually to go to medical school. And that was the path that I was on until in my last year, I actually started, my website, because it was more of a hobby outlet. There weren't a lot of girls in my program that liked makeup or were wearing a lot of makeup. And certainly I got like weird stares when I would show up at my 8:30 a.m. labs with like makeup on. So I found this kind of community online of women that were kind of like sharing tips and talking about products. And so I was kind of like a part of that. And I decided to try to, create my own website. And so that's what I did. And it actually, took off quite quickly. So
when did you start your website, by the way?
I started it in January of 2011. So it's been a little while now. And 6 years ago is actually when I quit, my job to do it full time.
Wow.
So it did in about a year, a little bit over a year, I went from, starting it as a hobby to it becoming my job. And I did that because, I had this decision, do I go to med school? Like I did the MCAT and I applied and everything. And so I was like, do I go to med school and then just completely have to get rid of this, fun project I've started, or do I, go for it and give it a chance, because school will always be there and I can always go back if I want to. And so that's what I did. I decided to give it a shot and see if I could, just do it a little bit longer. I actually didn't really have any expectations for it. I just kind of wanted to see what would happen if I took another year to work on it. And, the rest is really history. When I first quit my job, so I was working a job at the time just to like pay my bills. And I wasn't making enough money yet when I was like, I really want to try doing this full time. And I remember I had a conversation with my mom and she was like, give yourself 3 months. And if you've never given yourself, that kind of investment. So give yourself 3 months. And if you can't do it, you can go get a job. It's fine. And so I was like, you're right, Mom. Like I'm going to do it. And so I gave myself 3 months. And it was like so much pressure that like at the end of 3 months, I was able to pay my bills. I like made it happen. And, since then it kind of has just kept going.
3 months is like you must have hustled in those 3 months to make it happen.
A lot. Yeah, I did. And it was like a continued hustle. It wasn't just like 3 months and then, okay, great. I have a business that's working. It was still a lot of struggle, but it was kind of that, point that I set that, that deadline for myself. This is what I'm giving myself in terms of investment, because in my time and my money. And, let's see what we can do with it. So that was 6 years ago. So I think that it's been going okay.
It's been going pretty okay for sure. So what did you do, I guess, in those 3 months to go from, oh my gosh, I'm not making enough money to I'm making a living now?
Well, I think that it was also, I was working a full-time job. And so I had 40 extra hours, per week to really dedicate to working on it. And the extra time that I got from that, that was exactly what I needed. I knew that like I had the ideas, I had the drive, I had, all that kind of stuff, but I didn't have the time. So when I gave myself that time, I was able to make it happen and spend even more time developing strategy and, doing more outreach and stuff like that. It was a very different, business model back then than it is now. But at the time it was challenging, but I think just having that extra time to really just focus in on it, that helped.
Absolutely. So you kind of mentioned that it's a very different business model. And so much has changed in 6 years. It's incredible.
It doesn't seem like that long.
I know it doesn't seem like it went like that, but how much? So what did your business look like at the beginning to what it is now? I'm sure it's completely different.
So the one thing that has like remained the same, and I feel will always remain the same, is that like there's the advertising revenue stream.
Right.
However, back then it was mainly about banner advertisements. There wasn't a lot of, content collaborations, and there was hardly social media. And if what there was at the time, like Facebook and Twitter, it wasn't really being sponsored. The whole sponsored thing hadn't really come to be yet. So it was heavily relying on banner advertisements. And that is now going down. I think that you can speak to anyone who relies on advertising to monetize, and they're like, oh yeah, banner ads. Like there's not much coming in from there.
Exactly.
So that has definitely shifted. There was, in the beginning, as I was getting into it, there was the idea of affiliate commissions and affiliate networks,
Yeah.
Which is still very much that has grown in importance in the industry for sure. But back then it was like, it was kind of like beginning.
Yeah. I know. It's crazy how, just like you said, like when I started my blog, I mean, 6 years ago. And I mean, I didn't monetize it for a while, but it was like, everyone's like, it was all about the Google AdSense and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm like, no, I don't have ads on my website because there's no point to have that clutter because you can make better money in different ways.
Yeah. A lot of people don't have banner ads on their website anymore. It's interesting. Yeah.
It is interesting. One thing that I've always been curious about with kind of brands that are focused on like beauty and fashion is it seems to get started. You do have to kind of put that investment. You do have to spend some money to make some money. Whereas like for me, I got to write about personal finance. I just got to write about it. I talked about saving. So I like literally did not spend a dime. So like how I just feel like there's whenever I talk to people and they're like, oh, I'd love to start like a beauty blog or whatever. It sounds like, well, do you have money to buy all that makeup and stuff? Because I guess you have to build up to create those partnerships and then you start getting that product to review for free. Is that kind of how it works?
100%. So when I started, the reason why I like digital business so much is that there is relatively low overhead. Like I was able to start it in my apartment and you don't have to pay for, stock and storage and like overhead and like that kind of thing. So relatively starting a business in the digital, world is cheaper. However, I spent like all my money on beauty products, stuff that I didn't necessarily want, but I wanted, you need content. I wanted to review this stuff. And one of the strategies or one of the things that I told myself very early on was that I didn't want to reach out to PR people and work with PR people until I had something to offer them. And I think you probably heard, with influencers and just a lot of people who work in PR will tell you they get so many emails every day from people asking for free product. They want to collaborate. And I remember thinking like, no, I'm going to wait until I have like a decent amount of followers or readers before reaching out. That way they won't be able to say no. They'll want to work with me, right? So that took a little while. And I did definitely spend like pretty much all of the money that I made on product because it is expensive.
Yes.
But it was something that was very necessary. And I think that is something that a lot of people need to understand. These brands don't just send you product because they like you, because they want to give you something. You have to have something to give them in return, which is coverage and which is, reach and impressions, because that's their job. And you really have to look at it as a business in that way. And so it was definitely a huge relief when I started working with PR slowly, but surely, I'd work with brands here and there. Either I would reach out to them or they would email me and ask if they could send me stuff. So that was very helpful financially. And also just, I remember that was a very exciting part about starting, this company and watching it grow, because when like my favorite brands would email me and be like, we want to send you product, I'd be like, oh my gosh, yes. Big moments.
Do you ever feel like I guess you probably say no, but if you get reached out by some brand and you're like, I'm not actually a big fan, do you just say no? Or do you like, I'll give you a review, but I may not say that I like it?
So there's two very, very different scopes when it comes to what I do. And a lot of brands will send product samples for free, but it's for consideration. So you don't necessarily have to talk about it if you don't want to, especially if you don't like it or it just doesn't fit in with your calendar. So you're under no obligation, and the brands know that. If they want something more guaranteed and they want to, really have a say, or they really want you to post about it, then that goes down the advertorial route. Right. But in terms of sponsors, in terms of editorial, there is no, there's no like mandatory, kind of agreement that you have when you receive a product sample. And so when I get, contacted by a brand and I know that I'm not necessarily going to, like put their product priority, just because I do work with a lot of brands. I get a lot of product samples and I'm not even able to feature, all the ones that I do get. So back when I started, I would try everything. If someone wanted to send me something, absolutely, I would I would love to try it and I would review it. But more recently, I feel like I'm getting a little bit more, well, I'm trying to be more honest and just tell them, you know, like, if it's not going to get featured, I will tell them. And if it's not a fit, then I don't want them to send me their product if I know that I'm probably not going to feature it. However, I definitely am open to, you know, trying new products and discovering new brands. I think that that's a really cool part of what I get to do. So for the most part, I definitely like trying new things and will accept them. But there is that, you know, that agreement, like, it is only if I want to and if there's room in the calendar.
Exactly. Yeah. That's one of the things that I was kind of have been curious about. And I also get asked about too, when I talk about certain brands, we're like, oh, wow. Like it seems like I'm just always giving positive reviews. I'm like, well, I'm only giving positive reviews because I'm only going to talk about brands that I actually like or use.
For sure.
Like what's the, you know, it's kind of a waste of space to like, you know, do a video or a blog post being like, and in the end, it wasn't worth it. You're like,
totally understandable. Well. There are a lot of products that I receive that I do like that I don't even get to feature because just of the sheer number. But in some cases, I do think that doing I don't like calling them negative reviews. I think that every review should have a good or bad point. Like there are pros and cons to everything.
Totally.
But if it's something that I personally don't like, you know, sometimes I still will talk about it because it's very trendy. A lot of people are wondering about it. And if I think it's something that, you know, people really need to save their money on, that maybe there's something better, then I think that that's worth mentioning. And I think a lot of my followers appreciate that. Staying away from something might just be as important as telling someone to go buy something. Because at the end of the day, it's their money and, you know, they want to really enjoy what they are buying with it. Having said that, I also keep in mind that something that works for me won't always work for everyone else and vice versa. You know, something that doesn't work for me or does work for me, it's different for everybody. So you have to kind of keep that objective mindset instead of always being super subjective when it comes to your impressions of the products.
Totally. And that must be like the struggle too. It's just like, there's so many different products out there, especially like I get overwhelmed when I go to Sephora and I'm just like, I don't know. I just need like, can someone help me? I'm just like, I can't, but but there's certain things I need to get there. Cause I'm like, they really do work with me. And I've tried a lot of things over the years. It's not that lots of the products that I used weren't good, but I think they just weren't good for my skin or my coloring or whatever. So it's a bit crazy. So we talked a little bit about how you made money. Thanks for sharing that. Cause I'm sure so many people are like, how do these people make their money? Cause everyone's always talking, oh, it's so easy to make money online. It's not that easy. Clearly you've been doing this for 6 years. It's a long game, that's for sure. So we know how you kind of make your money in your business. I would love to dive into what do you do with your own personal finances? Like, how do you save money? Do you budget? Do you invest?
Yeah. Okay. So the thing is because I didn't have a business background, I kind of like learned the whole financial thing, like as I went. Like, I think I went my first, year without even like keeping track of it. Was not advisable by any means, but I kind of learned, over time how to proper manage the finances, especially because I do have so many different revenue streams and, different clients and different ways that I'm making money. So I have to really be very diligent about keeping track of that. And when it comes down to, like how I budget, it's difficult when you're self-employed and your finances can go up and down by the month, dramatically, like quite a bit. So the way that I do it is I usually go by my last 6 months. I'll try to take an average of like, what have I been making per month, like averaged over the last 6 months. And that's kind of like the number that I work with in order to kind of like be safe when it comes to finances. But it is tricky, there are times where paychecks are late or there's an unexpected, one time my camera broke right before I had to do a shoot and I had to go out and buy a new camera. And I was like not expecting that massive expense that day. But it was necessary. So you want to make sure that you cover your bases and you have some wiggle room with that kind of thing. But at the same time, it's important to keep track of where it's coming and where it's going. So I use like a spreadsheet to keep track of everything. And when it comes to saving, I've always been a pretty good saver. Even when I was, working like part-time jobs when I was in school, I was always pretty good at saving my money. I think my parents taught me pretty well, how to save money and be good with it. So the way I look at things is, if I want something, then I have to save up for it. It's not like I don't ever buy something if I don't have the money for it yet put aside.
Nice.
So that's something that I've kind of always had ingrained in me as I was growing up, and it's definitely helped now. So the whole, like, I didn't ever take a loan or anything like that to start my business, except for like those 3 months where I kind of like just invested in myself. But externally, I never took a loan for it, because maybe that's why it took so long. But I think that it kind of helped me, really, really be careful with the money, partially because of fear, because I'm like, I want to make sure that I have money in case there's an emergency. Yeah. And, it's me, like being self-employed, like it's not just money for a business, it's money for my life and for, my spending money, my rent, my bills. And so, I think better safe than sorry is like a good way to put how I save my money.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. No, I think that's actually really smart that you didn't rely on credit or take out a loan. I think a lot of people have this misconception that you need to take out a loan to start a business, because you always see in the movies, they go to the bank, they ask for a loan to start a business. It's like, you don't need to do that, especially if you're doing an online business where the overhead, you don't have to, rent a space or anything like that. If you can just take that extra time, even if it means staying at your job, saving up for another 6 months or a year to have that cash, you'll be so much more further ahead, because then you won't be worried about paying back your loan, which I think people forget you have to pay it back, and there's interest on top of that.
Exactly. You're paying back more.
Exactly. So that is awesome. I love that you're very conservative with your money, because I feel like most people wouldn't expect that from someone who, is talking about buying products and spending. I think you do have to have that balance where it's like, it's okay to spend. And I just I'm kind of doing this YouTube series about like, let's talk about spending, but let's talk about spending based on your values. So if your values are, I like makeup, I'm really passionate about it, that's where I want some of my dollars to go, that's fine. As long as you save that money for that purpose and make sure your budget works, right?
Exactly. I think that it's really important to allow yourself those things that you do enjoy. It's kind of like, if you're on a diet and you just like don't eat anything bad, then you just will go crazy and crave it all and just gorge on all of the treats because you deprive yourself. So it's the same thing with spending. Like, you still have to have those joys in life and those pleasures. And if it's traveling, then you save up for traveling. If it's clothes, you save up and then you buy the clothes. You can have it. You just need you got to save for it.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to sacrifice something. So it's like, maybe you just won't go out to eat as much. You'll eat in a bit more so you can afford the things that you want. Kind of talking more about maybe some longer term goals. How do you kind of save, or do you invest your money are you like starting to invest for your retirement already? Is that something that you're thinking about?
Yes. So I'm quite new to the world of investing, but in the last year or two, I've really gotten more, not concerned, but just that is something that I now need to think about. For the first little while, I was just really focusing on developing my business and trying to just establish, the business itself. And I was always scared to start investing because I was like, I need that money now, I might need it. What if I need it? So I was so scared to put money away. But at the same time, I knew that in the future, I'm self-employed. I don't have a pension. I have to save my money. I don't know where this industry is going. I don't know where things are going. And as much as that will always be a concern, at the end of the day, I'm always going to want, my savings for when I'm older. Yeah. So looking far down the line, I do have investments. I have a tax-free savings account, which is kind of more of my short-term investment. That's money I can still spend if I really want to. But I also have started contributing to RRSPs. And that I was even more intimidated by, but I knew it was important. I didn't really know how to do it. So I was just like, no, this is important and I have to do it. So that's something that I did 2 years ago. And I'm still, I'm still getting into the investments, but I know it's important and I know that it's doable, even a small amount adding to that is going to make a huge difference down the road.
And just creating that habit of, and I think that the more you do it, the longer you are an investor for, the less scary it is. Cause I still remember, back when I was in my early 20s and just like you, I'm like, I know investing is important. I don't think I understand all the ins and outs. I understand the basics. And so I opened up, my first RRSP because I'm like, even though I was really young, I'm like, I knew RRSPs are for retirement. I know I'll probably never get a pension no matter what kind of job I get. Start putting some money into that. I think at the time it was with Tangerine and just started kind of putting like $100 a month because I was really broke at the time. That's literally all I could afford. And then I just got into that habit. And at the time I'm like, oh my gosh, putting $100 a month is like, it's not going to add up to that much. But then as you realize time flies so fast, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm really glad I started then because time just flew by and now it's accumulated to this actual amount that's like, oh, that's nice. It's more than just like $1,000 in the bank. Yeah. So yeah, like you said, it's important. So, I guess one thing that I'm curious about, because you mentioned that you were kind of hesitant and afraid of investing. I think that is a very common fear, especially with people that like everyone knows you need to invest. It's the smart thing to do, but I think most people don't even know where to start. So where was your starting point? Like, how did you start kind of educating yourself about different options and what you should do?
I mean, like I said, I didn't know how to do it, but I ended up, I just like made an appointment at the bank and I was like, someone tell me what I need to know and help me make this decision because I'm not the one that knows this kind of stuff, but someone else can help me. So yeah, I went to the bank and I had them, show me and guide me through, the options and I trusted their advice. And, I mean, that's just kind of how it started. And I think that's the same for most people. Like we're so intimidated by something that we don't know anything about.
Totally.
Which is totally fair, Yeah.
I mean, and it's like you're talking about money for years and it's intimidating and there's so much language and jargon and stuff like that. But yeah, 100%. If you don't know where to start, talking to someone, Googling it, just looking at some blog posts or some articles, going like the Globe and Mail and read their financial section just to kind of get familiar. And I would definitely recommend, talking to an advisor or someone, on the phone, if it's an online kind of situation. But definitely I'd always recommend like having a list of questions because there's nothing worse than like going to talk to somebody and then they start talking. You're like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. What I was most surprised about was how many like there's so many different options. I walked in and I was like, an RSP, please. And they were like, sit down. Like,
what do you want in it?
Exactly. And I was like,
I don't know. I know. Well, I was just talking to a friend, it was a few years back now. And she's like, I'm going to invest in RSP. I'm like, well, what are you going to put into it? They're like, what do you mean? I thought I was just going to buy one. I'm like, no. Yeah. It's a vehicle. Then you have to decide what you want to put in it. Is it investments? Is it cash? So many people don't know that because I think when we kind of talk about it on a day-to-day basis, they're like, oh yeah, RSP, but no one really understands that it's a vehicle and not, it's just, but hopefully with us talking about it, more people will understand.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, like I said, I was not a business person to start, but over the years, I've just kind of like acquired more business knowledge. Yeah. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing financially. Like, over time, you get more comfortable with it and you don't have to be an expert right away. Yeah. And I think that that's something that, we need to allow ourselves a little bit more wiggle room there.
Exactly. And you don't have to be, an expert full stop to manage your money. I think and that's one of the things that I've always been trying to like get the message across is like, you don't need to have a financial background to know how to be good at managing your own money. Just like you didn't have a business background and now you have a business. And same with me. I'm like, I have a film degree. Like I do not have a business degree. Okay. And I you can figure it out, right?
Yeah,
and it's
for
sometimes
sure.
trial and error. But I think a lot of it is just like, oh, it's just like kind of intuition, or just, this makes sense. That doesn't make sense.
And I think something that everyone has in common is that everyone knows it's important, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's important. If you're not doing it because you're scared, like, oh, I don't have enough money to invest. Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's a portion, right? Like it's a percentage. It's a portion that you decide you can put aside. So yeah, you do. You just you make your budget afterwards, right? Like,
absolutely. And one thing that I always think is like a good way to kind of motivate, because you talked a lot about how important it is for you to track your spending. I think that's awesome. I always recommend tracking your spending. It's really helped me feel more confident and have more clarity with my money, especially when you're also running a business and you really do need that clarity with both your personal finances and your business finances, but also the other element of tracking your net worth on a regular basis. So you can see, okay, is my money growing? Am I saving? Is that number going up? So I feel like when people feel like they can't afford to invest, just start doing it and then track your net worth. And as hopefully your investments, grow and go up, you'll see, oh, wow, it's actually growing on its own. My money's making money off my money. It's a good motivating factor.
And that's such a good feeling when you're like,
oh, it's so good. Like there's nothing better than looking at like all of your finances. You're like, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah. Or just like seeing like the sum go up without you adding more. You're like, oh, look at that.
Look at that. Like what I didn't need to do. It just did it on its own.
Yeah, very gratifying.
Okay. Before I let you go, we talked a lot about a lot of things. Is there any kind of tip? Well, okay. I'm going to ask you two things. One, what is your kind of go-to beauty tip? And for like someone like me who really, this is as good as it gets. This is all I know how to do. And this was actually like a 7-step process. Thank you. But it's very basic. I just watched a video on your website of doing, I think it was like a Victoria Beckham kind of makeup. I'm like, how on earth do you know how to do that? Like, I don't even know how to do those brush strokes. Oh yeah. It's just like, I don't even know how to do mascara properly. So I'm in awe. This is one of my goals literally on my vision board is to learn how to do my makeup better.
That's amazing.
So I'm going to go on your website a lot and just like binge, read, and look at everything. But what is your, I guess, one basic beauty tip that anyone who doesn't know that much about like how to do your mascara properly, and I don't know. Something. Okay,
because you want to learn how to do your mascara properly?
I do. I actually really do. Like I smudge every morning. That's probably not. Yeah.
I think that, so a tip that I know a lot of people do is like when they're putting on their mascara, they're like looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
Or they're looking down at a mirror. And the first thing they do is like they look up to see themselves.
I do.
And you just like put that mascara all over your eyelids.
Yep.
So if you put your head back while you're doing it, and then the opposite way when you're doing underneath your lashes, and like wait, don't like go look around, like just kind of hold off for a little bit and just let it kind of dry for a few seconds before you start blinking and moving around.
Okay.
So that's a pretty good one for mascara.
I'm going to try that because actually I do exactly what you just said. I'm like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, why is it always smudge? It's because I'm always like looking at myself.
It's because we get impatient. We just like go look at something else.
It's true.
Just give it a couple seconds to dry.
Yeah. Okay. And so second question, what kind of tip or advice would you give for someone who is thinking about maybe kind of going your route, doing a side hustle or launching their own kind of online business, but they don't have the business background, but they just have a passion for something?
Oh man. I don't know if I have like one specific thing I could say, but just first of all, know that you can, know that you have that ability. And if you have that drive and that passion, I think that surpasses, any type of formal training ever. Whenever I'm, talking to someone that I might be interested in like hiring them or working with them, like, to me, it doesn't matter what their degree is. I want to see their passion and that kind of thing. So that will take you so much further, I think. So definitely know that you can do it. And I think that people don't give themselves enough credit for being able to try new things and practice, like try a new skill. If you want to, start a business, like start playing around with building a website. Like, I didn't know anything about coding when I started, but I knew that I wanted to. And so I made that a priority. And I knew I wanted as time went on, that I wanted to make this into a business. And so when you really want something, you start, practicing and studying and learning more about it. So believe that you can, because you definitely can. If I can, you can. And try to do things on your own that you maybe think that you can't, instead of just automatically assuming, oh, I can't do that. Practice, try. Yeah. I think that we're able to do so much more than we know.
Yeah.
And I think you just got to give it a shot. And that's also going to, save some money.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. Where can people learn more about you and your business, Jessica?
So on Instagram and social media everywhere, it's at Beautezine. My website is beautezine.com. And I also have my own personal Instagram and Twitter, which is at Jessica_DESJ. So that's awesome. Where they can find me and my business.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me for this episode. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much.
And that was episode 143 with Jessica Desjardins from Beautezine. Make sure to check out her website, beautezine.com, and follow her on all of her socials. Because, man, if you need some beauty tips, she will have your back. She knows what's going on. I'm going to take her tip about the mascara, because I should know how to do that by now. Anyways, I have a few things and some shout outs to get to. But before I get to that, I have a few words about this episode's sponsor. Support for this episode comes from Tangerine Investments. I don't have enough money. I'm worried that I'll lose it all. I don't know enough about investing. It's just too complex for me. Have you ever thought like this before? You're not alone. But that still shouldn't stop you from investing your money and putting it to work toward your financial goals. And a great way to do this is through long-term index-based investing, which you can do easily through Tangerine. Tangerine offers low-cost, diversified investment funds. And the best part is you can get started without ever having to leave your couch. You can learn more at tangerine.ca/investments. Once again, that's tangerine.ca/investments. All right. Well, first off, the show notes for this episode, which you may want to check out, are jessicamorehouse.com/143. But more importantly is tonight is the night. It is book club night. We will be getting together on Facebook with Kate Flanders to discuss her new book, The Year of Less, and you will not want to miss it. Even if you haven't read her book yet, it is a great opportunity to ask her questions if you're a big fan of her blog or her podcast called Honest Money Conversations. It used to be called Budgets and Cents. Now it's called Honest Money Conversations with Carrie Smith. But this is a great chance to join us, have some fun, talk about consumerism, minimalism, personal finance, all that kind of good stuff. Again, it's on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Jessica I. Morehouse, or in my Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Money Life Balance. And we will be going live tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I hope you are going to join us. Also got a few more shout outs from lovely people who've been leaving me iTunes reviews throughout the past couple months. So I'm going to get to those now. All right. So first one is from Salehulu. I know it's just a bunch of letters. Salehulu from Canada. They say, this is an awesome podcast. It's super interesting and educational about financial matters. Keep it up. Awesome. Sorry I butchered your name or your fake name. Okay. After that, I've got from Paula Loves from the US of A. After a long search for practical, informative, and engaging podcasts and all things money matters, Jessica Morehouse's is my favorite and the absolute best. Most other money podcasts are overly technical or extremely boring. It's hard to find one that offers practical advice for everyday people without being judgmental or condescending. Jessica's absolutely neither. She is interesting to listen to and covers topics that are on the minds of everyday people. She also seems to really care about everyone's success and is a great interviewer of her guests, covering a broad range of topics. Thank you, Jessica, and keep up the amazing work. Love it. Thank you. And yeah, that is 100% why I'm doing this podcast, so I can help everyday people like myself, because I'm an everyday person and I can't stand being talked down to or someone not thinking that I actually know what I'm talking about. So that is why I'm doing the podcast. That is why I have the listener series, is because this is the whole idea that finance is a specialized thing. Only certain smart people with, specific finance degrees can understand. That's crap in my books. Everyone can understand how to manage their money. And the first step is educating yourself by listening to, interviews on my podcast. So thank you so much for that lovely, lovely review. Next is Sabu Wex from Canada. Jess and her guests inspire me to get my money in shape and pursue my financial dreams while also being realistic about how to achieve your goals. Every time I finish an episode, I have a notebook full of tips and new business ideas. Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. Thank you so much for that lovely review. Okay, just a few more. Okay. This is from Marielle Sabel from Canada. I freaking love this podcast. I listen to at least one a day and has helped me immensely with understanding what it means to use my time and money well. I've been struggling to understand my finances for years, and this podcast has been such a gift. Jessica is honest, but also challenges listeners to use their money wisely. I would recommend this to anyone who is feeling like they need some help with their money, which is probably all of us. Seriously, give it a listen. Damn. Thanks, girl. Or I'm going to assume it's a girl. Thank you so much for that lovely review. One more, let you go. Okay. Last one is from Eshi54 from the USA. Jessica's podcast is great to listen to. I find that her guests all have something interesting to convey. Many make me consider aspects of personal finance I would have never thought of before. There are a few times where anything is Canada specific and therefore not applicable to me. I know, I'm sorry. I find it's one of the podcasts I most look forward to when I see a new episode pop up in my queue. Yay! Thank you so much for your review, SG54. And if you're listening and you haven't given me a review yet, but you want to let me know what you think and want to get a shout out on a future episode, please do so. All you have to do is go to iTunes, and it takes 2 seconds to leave a review. You can also leave one on Stitcher. But it'll be a lot of fun. You'll hear your name and your review live ride by yours. Live. You'll hear your review read live by yours truly. Okay, I think I need to go. And I will see you back here next Wednesday for a fresh new episode of the Mo Money Podcast.